personnel. And in the upcoming footage, which you're going to see gradually working onto your screen, there is much that was missing from these tapes. One of the best examples being, of course, the fact that almost all of the props, almost all of the insignia and heraldry that was tied into it had to do with United Nations military operations. From the United Nations National Police Force to, of course, ground operations for search and seizure of firearms. Well, 14 plus nations were involved, possibly others in a covert fashion on the sly, giving support to this particular action, and also activities that took place at Fort Riley, Kansas, and other quiet exercises in the Carolinas, Florida, Texas, California, and of course in Washington State, and not the least of which would also be other nations such as Canada, Cambodia. Oh, that's right, the war games in Yugoslavia too. Well, whatever you'd like to call them. Remember, with Korea, it was not a war, it was a conflict. So I'm sure they'll come up with a more appropriate name. We wouldn't want to, well, sully the waters with words that actually mean what they say. With Cooperative Nugget, it can be demonstrated, and I think we're going to show you, shall we say, a few knocks on the door in the twilight hours. Alexander Solzhenitsyn spoke about such activities and reminded people that if they had simply waited for them in the twilight hours when they did arrive and stopped them in their tracks, the bloody machine would have ground to a halt. Well, what you're seeing now, ladies and gentlemen, are shades and visions of things to come. That's right, National Police Force. And what do those armbands say? United Nations. Well, search and seizure and force operations of this type are what were being demonstrated at Fort Polk, and every international element that was there got a chance to practice. A little point that should be made is that when the British were involved with this particular phase of the exercise and they entered the structure, they wouldn't let the camera crews enter with them. Why? Well, the policy of the British forces entering any structures, homes, businesses, or whatever, is to kill everybody. Men, women, cats, dogs, kids, everybody. Now, can this be demonstrated? Well, for your benefit, we have a couple of hours of footage that was done by different crews who were live and on location during Operation Cooperative Nugget. And one of the complaints is that during the British phase and one of the Russian phases, when these particular search and seizure actions were taking place, well, they didn't want the camera crews there to shoot what was really being shot. When asked where the prisoners were that would normally be taken out of the building during this phase, the American instructors commented rather quietly that there were no prisoners. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the British, the French, and many other parties are key individuals participating in this New World Order police force. Now, Nifty Nugget, as we call it, was just a small example, as we said, of visions of things to come. Well, there's much more on the horizon, and United Nations equipment has been spotted, supposedly not verified, and not identified across the United States. Well, let me help you with some of this. We have documented evidence from all over the United States, from Alabama to Mississippi, from Florida to New York to California at LA Airport, where helicopters have been delivered, specifically stenciled United Nations, all white, and as National Police Force vehicles. These aircraft are still being used across California and are also showing up in Michigan, Washington State, Minnesota, etc. Well, let me throw a little point out here for you. In this image, again, a picture says 1,000 words. United States Army warning, entering Fort Polk Military Reservation entrance only, entrance only is approved by the post commander. Entry on this post constitutes consent to search person and vehicle at any time. Criminal and traffic offenses are strictly enforced. Violators are subject to the UCMJ and or the United States codes. You might notice what's behind this sign. Well, yes, those are U.S. or, well, international Humvees now, all marked United Nations, etc., and this is one of Fort Polk's many motor pools. These particular pieces, of course, are readily, well, shall we say, available to different training authorities across Fort Polk and throughout the United States. Do we have examples of these and many others being moved? Oh, make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. There are many images, and there are many photographs available of images of things to come. Well, speaking of image of things to come, not only were these UN pieces of equipment being transported, but we're going to tie in another part of American peril and, of course, call to arms. This is a very interesting subject, portable prisons. Showing up all over the United States, these particular vehicles are being transported, of course, through Louisiana, headed for Texas, and, of course, other FEMA installations and facilities around the nation. Examples of the equipment and how it's being used, yes, we were paying attention, and we did, of course, make a point of identifying tags, company names, and getting all of the numbers we could off these vehicles, and tracking down who's who in the zoo and who has been, shall we say, participating in these actions. Now, it should be noted that United Nations activities are not new in the United States. They were demonstrated even a few years ago, and there was a great contest, of course, a demonstration that, well, the people who are talking about this must be crazy. We just don't know what's happening. In the first phase of denial, this helped to buy the other side some time, but we also did, as we said before, change their overall agenda and their timetable. We forced their hand in many areas. Had the Weaver situation and the Waco situation developed appropriately, we would have seen yet a larger program laid into place sometime in late 1994 or the middle of 94 through 95, in which much of the equipment you see here where it would have been fielded against the American people. Now, again, we have changed the timeline. When I say we, I'm not talking about one individual. The overall maxi program involved with the Patriot movement has been effective. But remember this, the New World Order also has a timeline agenda that must be met in order for its acolytes, or all of its individuals that are following these particular ideologies, these particular theories, these particular religions that have been established, if you want to call them that, the New World Order clique. They must demonstrate that they have total control, that it is futile to resist, you will be absorbed. And so we are seeing the waters being tested to demonstrate, again, just how ignorant or foolish we are. It was counted on that the American people only have about a 3-month memory span. That's why I wanted to jog your memory at the very beginning to demonstrate that New World Order is not a term that was made up by the Patriot movement or the militia. The New World Order is the enemy that we all face. Now, some parties have admitted to cooperation with this action, more so than others. But where will this lead? If at this point in time foreign forces can be brought in under arms and allowed to operate inside the United States, and if the United Nations is becoming the global police officer, well, what's good for the goose is good for the goosey. And it's only a matter of time, since we're part of that signatory contract, that you and I are going to see these United Nations policemen on our block, since we're all part of that global neighborhood. Well, what can we anticipate? Well, first of all, they're going to need crises. And as we said, the media is, well, very adept at helping to create soap operas, to say the least. I should know personally, since we watched during the Oklahoma affair a veritable storybook open up, fabricated from top to bottom, in many cases virtually outrageous. But some of what you didn't see, we have seen, and we have over 90 hours of satellite intercepted footage, ladies and gentlemen, that could never have been put on television. What happened is, and as you're going to see take place and develop in the future, the New World Order's mask will progressively disappear. It's going to be pulled off, and it's going to be forced simply because we are keeping our heads. We're not reactionary, we're responding. We're not simply working ad hoc. We, of course, also have plans. We have an understanding of where we want to be, and we're not, again, whining about the problem. We are coming up with solutions to the problem. When the Oklahoma affair took place, ladies and gentlemen, what you did not see in the footage that was kept on the satellites and not put across the airwaves on your television show an enemy that brushed all of the minor players aside that were the outer party people in the media. And what came out from behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, wasn't a gentle, kind old man. They were individuals who were salivating, who were virtually tensed and angry. They were biting, chomping at the bit, slavering at the camera. They had to be taken off the air. There was no way that this footage could be used. It was virtually embarrassing. But what it did is it showed many people, even in the media industry, just exactly what kind of creatures they were dealing with and what type of benevolence is really involved. The footage that you just saw here shows the New World Order in its prime. The knock at the door at 3 in the morning, as Solzhenitsyn described. The wretched machine going from door to door, searching for your weapons, trying to find informants, paying off your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, whoever they could find, to find some crime to lay against your name. That is the future of the New World Order as we know.